Hey guys, welcome to your first XNA game tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm just going to be explaining the code more, and if we have the time, I'll get to adding a sprite to our game. If not, that's what we'll be doing in the next tutorial. So File, New Project, Windows Game, and let's name this XNA Beginner Series 1. Hit OK. Once that loads, we're going to take a look at this code. Let's go ahead and delete some of this. Ooh, this is actually kind of nice. They explain it. Alright. This first variable that's been declared for us is the graphics device manager. This is an important object because it provides us with access to the graphics on our device, whether that's a computer, Xbox, or a Windows phone. The graphics device manager object has a property called graphics device. That property represents these graphics. Everything we do with graphics has this graphic device object acting as a middleman between our game and the device we're using. This second variable right here is called sprite batch. This is a core object that we'll be using to draw our sprites. A sprite is a 2D or 3D image that is integrated into a larger scene. Think of like characters on the screen, the enemies we're fighting, or even some background objects. Now, if we scroll down, we're going to see this method, initialize. The initialize method is used to initialize variables and other objects associated with our game1 object. The next method that we're going to see is then load content. Load content is called after initialize. It is also called anytime the graphics of the game need to be reloaded. This is where we load all graphics and other content required by our game. I'll be actually going over this method again in a little bit. After this, the program will enter the game loop. After the load content method, the game object will enter the game loop. Almost all games use some form of game loop, whether or not they're written in XNA. A game loop is a series of methods that are called repeatedly until the game is exited. If we look, we will see that this pertains to the update and the draw method. Update and draw. I may blow your minds here and say that all the things that need to be drawn in our game are actually created with the draw method. I don't know if you saw that coming or not, but yeah, that's actually true. Okay, back to the load content. I did want to say one last thing about it. This is where we update everything. This is where we check for collisions, update scores, update positions of items on the screen. We can check for user input and any algorithms or anything we use. This will all be occurring within the update method. Once we exit the game, we actually call this unload content method. The unload content method is used to unload any of the content loaded into the game by the load method. Typically, XNA will handle this garbage collection for us, but let's say we modify memory in some object that requires special handling, we will then need to unload that object ourselves, but that's later on. Okay. A key difference between game development and application development is the concept of polling versus waiting for events. Many non-game applications are event-driven, meaning they are waiting for the user to click a button or enter text into a box. In game development, we have a different style. It is driven by polling for events. Instead of the system telling the game the user has moved the mouse, your game will have to ask the system whether or not the mouse is moved. Slight difference. Meanwhile, the game is always performing actions, regardless of user input. This first parameter in the draw method is game time. And this represents the time that has passed during the execution of our games. All computers do not run at the same speed. This variable helps us to determine when animations and other events should happen based on game time rather than processor speed, which can vary from computer to computer. The same parameter is actually also used in our update method for many of the same reasons. If we see this graphics device.clear, what we're doing here is it's erasing the screen and then redrawing our graphics when they've moved. It's more efficient than you would think. Rather than tracking all objects on the screen as they move an inch and then planning where they go, it's just easier to actually just clear it and redraw it. Before we go to the next tutorial, I did want to show you guys some things. If you have the Solution Explorer, you'll see this is where our main game is. This is where we're going to add our content. This is where, if we make a game library, we can add the references here. This is where we're going to be adding folders. This is where we're going to be putting all of our images. Everything will be going on in here. So make sure that you take a look around the Solution Explorer and that you know what's in each of these boxes, and that you kind of feel comfortable with this because we're going to be using it a lot. Alright, so I'll see you guys in the next tutorial where we will be adding the sprite to our game. See you guys then.